Hey, it's Filter Free Friday, y'all. Listen, I am so glad you're here. It has been a week, honey. I started the week going to church Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at noon, and then again at 7. And one of my childhood friends was like, "You're going back to the church house," but there's this thing called revival. If you've grown up in the church, you understand what a revival is. And it just as far as I'm concerned, uplifts the spirit, and my spirit was uplifted. And I think that was important because of what happened yesterday. I also um, rounded out the end of the 31-day kindness campaign. And I will tell you, while I fundamentally believe that I am a kind person, it was difficult when something that I believed was unjust happened and I was in the middle of the kindness campaign. It's like, how do you, when people believe that kindness means that you are doing things that make them feel good and feel comfortable and make their life better, how do you bring up issues of injustice during a kindness campaign? I know that these two things are not at odds, and I tell you, I was struggling with it the whole time. I'd be curious to know how some of y'all do it, but I really struggle with this, what appears to be a dichotomy between kindness and justice. And I think I got a double dose of that feeling because I was reared in Midwest nice culture. And then in the summer, I was in Southern hospitality culture, both cultures that don't really support justice work in terms of what it's supposed to feel like. But I had the revival, and then I had which, by the way, the Reverend Dr. F.D. Sampson Sr. was there singing and preaching, and so was Pastor Donald Johnson from Memphis. And honey, it was a really good time for me. I have forgotten how much I like good old fashioned devotion. I think there's something somatic that happens in my body. Before I knew about somatic empathy, I wasn't paying no attention to this. But I fundamentally believe that there's something that happens with that call and response from devotion. If you've never experienced it, I think you should. I think there's something to be gained physically in our bodies when we get a chance to sway with others, people, singing, dancing, like I said, call and response. And I believe that our ancestors knew something that we have abandoned. And I believe that that is partly why we are still holding so much pain and grief and struggle in our bodies. And it shows up as an anxiety. Anyway, I digress. Revival, then the end of the 31-day kindness campaign. I had gone over to your wellness connection to get an adjustment, actually to get acupuncture, because acupuncture is something that helps me, as well as hypnotherapy, which I know people got all the kind of feelings about. But while I was sitting there waiting for the acupuncturist, I think that's the word and how you say it, there was a lovely older woman. She got up out of her seat. I have no idea how old she was, but if I had to guess, I'd say she was in her 80s. And she walks over in front of me, and I could tell that her caretaker is really nervous. And, I smile because I have learned throughout my life that a smile can help to disarm people. And her caretaker was a sister. So, wasn't nothing, about that in necessarily, but it was just that here she comes, this older white woman with the cutest bangs, and she's coming over by me. And first she just walks past, and then she walks back. But when she walks back, she starts talking to me, and none of it makes sense. I can tell that her brain is not working for her anymore. But I smile and I tell her that I like her bangs, and she touches her hair. But then what she says after that is, again, more gibberish. And so I'm holding her hand. I'm thinking about my mom. It's this interesting thing that's happening now as my friends are getting older and their parents are getting older, and they have this beautiful opportunity to watch their parents grow old. I know that nobody wants to have the horrible experience that I have of their moms being killed by a drunk driver early in life, or like my dad passing away when I was 10. Like, I know nobody wants that, but I think because so many people in my life have died as a result of accidents, like one of my bestest childhood friends Her birthday was yesterday, and she passed away from pneumonia. And I find that when people get an opportunity to grow old, especially here in the West, that we find it to be a burden. I get to hear people complain often about, taking care of their parents, and I know that it is a burden. In fact, I think sometimes I believe that I got out of this thing um, in one of the most compassionate ways possible, meaning that there's a grieving that happens while you are taking care of your parents as they age, watching them not be themselves again. But then that doesn't make it easier when they pass away. You're still going to grieve that loss. And so I was just holding her hand, listening to her gibberish. I had no idea what any of it meant. And I was just smiling at her. And then all of a sudden, she looked me right in the depths of my soul and said, "You are so wonderfully beautiful that I can hardly stand." And I tell you, and then she went back to speaking gibberish. And I tell you, I just believe that that was God speaking to me in that moment, because too often, if I am just being honest, I struggle because I am not like what people traditionally consider to be nice. I don't have that high voice. I'm not gonna give you the small talk of just like, "Oh, you look great today." If I don't think that, I'm not gonna say it. I'm gonna, if I do think it though, I am going to tell you. But if I don't think it, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not the person who's gonna be running over to your house like all the time. I'm just not that person. Yeah, I think you all know what I mean. Like the nicest people, the nicest people. I am not that. But honey, I'm your person if the world has turned their back on you. Okay. If you need a pep talk, if you need to be rejuvenated, if you are not focused, I'm your person. I got you. And so I do find myself to be kind, but as we were going through this kindness campaign and this disconnect between justice and kindness, and sometimes I don't know, right? And so I felt like God sent an angel to say and to speak through me, to me, from the revival, the songs, the messages, then also from this beautiful spirit at your wellness connection, and all of that. I tell you, prepared me for these dying emails, for these Epstein files. And also, I just learned that one of my dear social justice warriors in the space of women's rights is hanging up her gloves. My dear friend Alice Kitchen and I have known each other for 4 years. And every time she calls me or emails me, every time, it has been to tell me something we're going to do, how we're going to put some pressure on the mayor to get some more appointees for the Human Rights Commission, how I need to come and talk to the chief of police. Don't matter that I got a keynote to deliver, how I need to be there. She's telling me about free and fair access to reproductive rights. I mean, just something she wants me to attend. When we were at the ad hoc Legacy and Light fundraiser in October, honey, instead of sitting down eating that chicken, which was actually good, it wasn't rubber chicken, by the way, she was collecting signatures. Like that was just a month ago, getting those signatures validated so that, honey, we can make sure that we have a right to vote in elections. And I don't know how old she is, but I learned that if you happen to know Alice, she would like to see you. And so if you will send me a direct message, if you know Alice Kitchen, she would like to see you, because my good sis is hanging up her gloves. I went to see her yesterday, and I was telling her about these darn emails and what's in them. And she raised her eyebrows to let me know that she heard me and that it was ridiculous. But the reason why I brought typically is sending me messages about is because the last communication she had sent to me was on October 28th, and she wasn't telling me to do anything. And I didn't realize it until yesterday. When I read the message yesterday, she was just uplifting my spirit, telling me that she reads my column every week, and inviting me to think about additional work that can help with the empathy revolution. And why am I telling you that? Because it is sad to me to see people who have been in the work, especially for as long as Alice has been, which is over 5 decades, working and fighting and pushing for equal rights, regardless of the genitalia you have. And I am never ready when the greats leave us, because it feels like I'm not going to get to ask my questions again. But what I am sitting solidly with is that I think, there's no way for me to know this, but I think that Alice knew that she was on the home stretch here, and she sent that last message so that I could have instructions. And this week, what I want to leave you with, as we have so much work to do, is I think it is important that we channel our inner Alice's. You know, I probably worked for 6 months to try to get some appointments on the Human Rights Commission, and it wasn't working. I mean, I had come to social media to complain. I had written articles in the paper to complain. I had reached out to the mayor's office. I had reached out to the current prosecutor who used to be in the mayor's office. I'm like talking to everybody I know to try to make this happen, and it ain't happening. And so I just stopped. I gave up. Like, look at my shoulders. I mean, like, you can just see it. I was dejected, right? So I give up. A few months later, Alice sends me a message like, what you doing? What's going on with this? I've sent some more appointments. And do you know, this woman worked for a full year to get the people she wanted appointed on the commission. And I am telling you, I was just so shocked and inspired, actually, that I could look to someone who was at least 30 years my senior and get inspiration and power to continue to work another day. And I guess the only message I got for you this week, and certainly for you, Ashley, I want you all to find your inner Alice's. You know, sometimes this work requires that we got to put a whole lot into it. And sometimes we need people who can pour into us too. I hope to be that for others. And I hope that as I am being that for others, that you all are doing that for other people too. Because when I think about, in fact, I just got a nasty message. And I think this is coming from YouTube. And I am so grateful. Like, I can't be more grateful for the kindness campaign and for the revival this week, because Pastor Donald Johnson brought up one of the situations between Jesus and Peter. And you might know this story. Peter is walking out if there's a storm brewing, and the people are scared. And Peter sees Jesus, and Jesus says, walk out here on the water. And it's really stormy. And Peter walks out on the water. Peter is walking on the water with Jesus. And then Peter gets scared, looks down, right, sees the storm, and then he starts to sink. The rest of the story is not as important. What is important is that the storm was always there. The people were always hateful. The folks were always unkind. The people were, when you think about even like these Epstein emails, this stuff happened years ago. It was happening. Now we just have our eyes on it, right? We got our eyes on it, and now we see it. And so what does it look like to recognize that there are always going to be things happening? Maybe you have sickness in your body that you don't know about. Maybe there's somebody you think is a friend who really isn't. Maybe some of your clients are talking about not doing business with you anymore for a specific reason. But those things are happening always. They're always happening. And so what does it look like to keep your eyes focused on what you need to do and the amazing work that you need to do so that you can press forward? And I can tell you that for me, it's been people like Dr. Marjorie Williams, Jim Nunnally, Alice Kitchen, who have helped me to be able to press on despite whatever else might be happening. And so we got incredible work to do, y'all. And you need those little shots of inoculation to help you keep going. And if you don't have them, I want you to sit down and think about where they might be and where you might be missing them, because they are always there. All right. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. We got incredible work to do.